Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about turning playing too many video games into an advantage. So this is something that I used to do. I used to play a ton of video games when I was in high school and even a little bit of college. I would just play video games all the time. My parents had to really get on top of me to get me to stop before I actually kind of started taking life seriously. And that's really when actually my life started getting better, is when I started playing less of that and focusing more on improving myself and just becoming more of an adult, taking on more responsibility. But between then and now, I've read hundreds and hundreds of books. I've actually figured out a way that I used myself and that you can use that actually turns that situation of playing too many video games into an advantage. And so we're going to talk about that today. So let's break down exactly this technique that you can use to actually turn your video game playing into an advantage rather than a disadvantage. So the way that it works is you need to understand how habits work, right? Your video game playing is a habit, and a habit can be broken down into 3 steps. You have the trigger, you have the routine, and then you have the reward. Now, typically what happens with video gamers is the trigger is free time, the routine is playing video games, and then the reward is the instant gratification, the dopamine, just the pleasure you get from playing the video games. So that's typically the habit. If you have any free time whatsoever, then you'll log on, or you'll get on your PS4, your Xbox, whatever it is. And, so that's the trigger, and the routine is, playing, and you're unable to stop. You go for hours and hours and hours. And then the reward is the benefit you get while you're playing. So the technique that I came up with and that I introduced and that I want you to do is I want you to actually insert something positive in between, or I should say positive to your future, in between the trigger and the routine, right? So in between the free time and the playing video games. And I want you to do it for only 5 to 10 minutes, depending on what it is. So for example, if your habit was, your trigger was free time, routine would be playing video games, and the reward is, the aspect of playing video games, I want you to insert something that you're interested in or something that's productive to your future long term, right? So if you enjoy studying coding, I want you to insert just 5 or 10 minutes of reading about a certain coding language. Or I want you just to read a self-development book for 5 minutes, something very, very small, but you just insert something tiny right before you play video games. And what happens is you'll actually recondition that habit, and you'll actually create the new habit of where you actually get excited about doing that productivity thing before you play the video games, or because you play the video games. So it reconditions you to where you want to do that productivity thing, because then now the reward for doing that productivity thing is video games, right? So your trigger's free time, your new minor routine is studying coding or doing something productive, and then the reward will actually be video games. And so it's just a little way to kind of tweak that habit, but it's actually really, really powerful. And obviously 5 minutes a day isn't going to make you a master at a coding language, but if you slowly build on that, so when that 5 minutes becomes a habit, and then you slowly expand it, like after a week or 2 weeks, once your body's comfortable with it, expand it to 10 minutes, and then slowly to 15 minutes. You do it slowly, because then it allows your brain to adapt, and it doesn't feel like you're pushing it too much. And so you just slowly expand it until it gets to 30 minutes, to an hour, to 2 hours. And then what ends up happening again is at the very end is you actually end up you get excited about doing that, because the reward is video games, something you already enjoy, you love doing. And of course, that beneficial thing that you're doing before is going to benefit you in the future. It's going to help you get a job, or it's going to help you do something, whether it be working out, whatever you want to do, whatever your long-term goal is, it's going to help you get there. So that's the technique I highly recommend that you use. That's the technique that I use pretty much in everything else that I do. It doesn't have to be just to video games, but I wanted to apply it strictly to video games because that's how I learned it. But I highly recommend that you try doing it, because it is extremely powerful, and no one's really talking about it. And it really has the advantage to turn any of your bad habits around, but specifically, too many video games can actually be an advantage because it'll force you to build positive long-term habits. You got to flip it. So thank you so much for watching. I wish you the best of luck in your day, and I'll see you next time. It's interesting because the thing about life, one of the things that makes, playing too many video games, the downside is playing video games isn't productive, right? And, if we're not constantly improving, if we're not moving forward in our life, then we're actually falling behind because everybody else is moving forward. And so we really need to be on top of ourselves to improve, or we're just going to fall behind and we're not going to feel good about ourselves, right? Because happiness is found in unlocking our true potential, in accessing our true potential. But if we know that playing video games all day long isn't what we're called to, or isn't productive, then we're going to feel down, and it's, maybe minor depression, and we're just not going to feel good about ourselves. But, at the same time, it's hard. I remember exactly how it is. It was always, I'll just play one more Battleground. I'll just, play one more map, Call of Duty or World of Warcraft. And, it's difficult because it's so easy to set, or it's so easy to push that aside and do it later. Whereas, video games are instant gratification, which is where the trap really